I remember my head teacher pulled me into his office and was like, "Why are you changing from psychology to food? Do you want to be a chef?" And he kind of looked at me like, "Why are you wasting your education on doing that?" That annoyed me, and I think that gave me a bit of fire to be like, right, you can make something of this.
Darcy Laceby, co-founder of Absolute Collagen. At the age of 20, Darcy made a decision most graduates wouldn't dare take. Instead of taking the traditional career path, she threw herself into building a startup alongside her mum.
I'm always like, if you need me to step back or change or leave, whatever it is, I'll do it. I was just like, well, these people must know everything. Like, they were bringing in MDs of really big companies, really cool people. And I was just like, said yes to everything because I thought they must know. But what I've realized is I know the customer better than anyone else.
What's the hardest part about working with your mum?
We're not very good at identifying when, like, I just want her to be a mum versus a co-founder or business partner or whatever. So I'll sometimes, rant or moan, and she'll do the same at me, and she goes into like fix mode.
Welcome to Screw It, Just Do It, the show for those who decided to screw it and just did it. I'm Alex Chisnall, host of this podcast and co-founder of the Festival of Entrepreneurs at the NEC in Birmingham this October 8th and 9th. This is the podcast that brings you face-to-face with the entrepreneurs and business rebels who threw caution to the wind and built something extraordinary. Quick heads up, registration is now open for this year's Festival of Entrepreneurs. Join us at the NEC in Birmingham on October the 8th and 9th for 2 game-changing days with 200 plus speakers and thousands of ambitious founders. Get your free limited 2-day pass at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk or click my personal link in the show notes.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex. I didn't realise I would be the youngest, so thank you.
I love things that happen like that. Amazing. Well, look, thanks for your time. Lots of questions to ask you. First one is, when you were finishing uni and when Absolute Collagen began, was there an exact screw it, just do it moment you thought, I'm going to go all in on this instead of going down the graduate career path?
No, so I went to uni in year 1, year 2, didn't really come home for the whole of year 1. And then in year 2, Maxine started looking, Maxine's my mum, I do call her Maxine, it freaks people out, started looking at bone broth. And so in year 2, I kind of came home a little bit. And the end of year 2, I was doing a little bit more on it, but not massively. And then my year 3 contract came around and I was like, oh, I think I should just move home. Like, I can help out a bit more. And so me and Maxine were just like kind of independently doing bits to the business, but there was never like a moment. And in the background, I was still applying for jobs, like applying for grad programs and, failing at the numerical and verbal reasoning tests every time. So no, not really.
And what were you looking at, like career-wise, if you were applying for different graduate jobs, etc.? What was the path that you were going to go down?
Yeah, so about 3 months before I was due to start uni, I'd used all my options to do psychology, and then realised I don't want to do psychology. I want to do something I actually enjoy, and that's food science, nutrition. So I changed, actually went through clearing and did consumer management and food science. And I wanted to go into procurement of food, which is so random. And so not me. I'm quite creative. But yeah, my whole degree was focused around product and innovation and food science. But yeah, it would have probably been quite like logistics. And I'm quite like, I'd message people on LinkedIn that has like similar jobs and I'd go like speak to them and stuff. I'm not a nerd, it's not clever, but I'm quite nerdy in terms of I like to find things out.
No, I get that. I always run things past like an inner circle or search out people who've kind of been there, done it as well. I think that's a sound way of doing things. What were your friends thinking when you kind of backed away from the idea of going down that route then and decided to go all in on the business with your mum, Maxine?
Yeah, well, when I was at sixth form, actually, when I'd swapped, I went to grammar school. And yeah, I was always more focused on sport and arts and things like that. And I remember my head teacher pulled me into his office and was like, why are you changing from psychology to food? Do you want to be a chef? And he kind of looked at me like, why are you wasting your education on doing that? And that annoyed me. And I think that gave me a bit of fire to be like, right, you can make something of this. And I always wanted a business. That was always what I'd like, always on the sidelines. When I was in sixth form, I'd like do little bits and bobs and things and sell stuff. But I think people are a bit concerned when I changed to food, to be honest. My mum and dad had always been pretty supportive of whatever I wanted to do. Like, I'm really lucky there. But yeah, I don't really think anyone had an opinion. All my friends were going to do like psychology or like law and things like that, which just didn't really suit my personality, I don't think. But it's interesting. My uni degree, like in my second year onwards, is all my coursework's all on collagen and gelatin and brain broth, and yeah, it was really instrumental. I remember we had trading standards come around to, I say the office and warehouse, it was our house and garage. And they were like, "Do you have a HACCP program? Do you have this?" And I was like, "Yes, here's what I made at uni." Like everything was so aligned, and I probably use it way more than anyone else does that I know in terms of my degree and the kind of skills that I learned there. So I'm happy. Well, more than happy I made the switch.
I bet you are. And so, when you were a teenager then, and you had thoughts of maybe starting your own business, was that just before your mum started Absolute Collagen?
Yeah, so I've always been pretty independent. My dad had a company from when I was little, and he sold that when he was about 50. That's like a glass, like he's toughen glass basically. It's funny. My sister had a baby in February, and I always say I always wanted a business, and she wanted a baby, and we got what we wanted. So like when I was 14, I'd like started. Well, I started like a little catering company. I did like wakes and things, and, and things like that, and like I don't know why I led with wakes, but do birthday parties too. Like sold like phone cases, like stuff off eBay and things like that. Like I've always just been interested in doing things like that, and like I'd write business plans and weird things. And it's funny, I speak to people from school, and they were like, "What?" Like no one ever knew about any of that. Um, yeah, like I keep it to myself really. And then when I was 17, I wrote a cookbook and self-published that, and used to go to like events and sell it and things. But yeah, I've always liked to be busy, I think.
I love that. And did you say that both your parents encouraged you kind of down that route? They were aware that you were thinking that you'd like to start a business?
Yeah, I mean, they both know like I've always been pretty entrepreneurial and like think on my feet and stuff. My dad's probably less so, and he'll hate me for saying this. My dad's quite traditional. He's quite old school. So he worked from this, had this factory environment company. And I remember on my 16th birthday, we went for dinner and we were with some of his friends, and he was like, "Oh, Darcy, I just sometimes it'd just be great if you're a boy because you could have taken over the business." And at that point, he didn't quite understand. And I bring that up to him now, and he looks at me like, "I'm so sorry." And he gets it, but I guess it's just the way that he was brought up and the environment that he's in. And yeah, I know that he's super proud of what I do now, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I bet he is. As a father myself, I think it's amazing what you've achieved. So I could imagine what he thinks as well. So for you, like, what was the moment that you decided to join forces with your mum? Can you tell me a little bit about that? You mentioned it earlier when she was kind of experimenting with bone broth, and I know that with your background that you'd done, did you identify what the main compound was within that, which was collagen? Tell me a little bit about that, Darcy.
Yeah, so I take so basically Maxine started cooking up bone broth after this art project where she literally opened my bedroom door one day and had taken the colour out of her hair, and it goes like orange. I've got quite like long curly hair, so did she. She basically chopped it all off, got a nose piercing and a tattoo that said "I'm more than just a body." And I was like, oh my goodness. And what that basically, she was her own art project basically. And what that kind of led her to believe is what she wanted to do was see how people perceived her, but what she actually ended up doing is realizing that no one really gives a crap about what you look like. It's really your own confidence and your own self-belief and your value on you as a person, personally. And she realized she didn't have much value on her character or her personality, and it was all kind of her whole life had been framed on how she sort of looks. It's weird if you speak to someone that knew her 20, 30 years ago compared to now, it's like two different people, and she's really her own person now. And she's actually quite an introvert, and I think people wouldn't expect that from her. She always used to be like the person that, held a room and things like that. But she started looking what she was putting in her body as kind of this whole process. Started cooking up bone broth in the kitchen, which I genuinely think we should have had shares in like crock pot or little slow cooker things, because there'd be chicken feet and pig's trotters in black vats all the time, and you'd put them in and you'd have to leave them for 12 hours, and you'd then get a potato peeler and peel the chicken feet. It was quite grim. We don't do that now, don't worry. Yeah. So I would just see her doing that, eating it, and literally giving it to her friends, thinking she was barking mad. come back from uni occasionally and there'd be like gravy boats in the fridge and I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Ignoring her, to be honest. And then in my second year, this is probably 6 months after she started, so she came up with the formulation. I didn't do that. She's kind of like the ideas, foot to the floor, like full speed ahead. And I'm like, okay, let's just like not hurt anyone. Let's do this properly and the things. So I could just take it to uni and, my projects would be like, okay, look at the nutritional spec for a product or create a product safety sheet for a product. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just do it on what you're doing. And then we kind of developed and refined and realized it was the collagen that was doing the good thing, not the gelatin, and how are we going to find the best form of collagen and that stuff. So at this point, I'm still just doing my degree and she's just giving it to her friends and we're not really trying to create a business. And then she started making it for people and it was really hard work. Like the yield is like pretty low. That's when we realized it was collagen, we can just buy it. And we actually found a letter. She hand wrote a letter to some Chinese manufacturer to buy collagen. That's how computer savvy she wasn't. Honestly, she'd never turned a laptop on in 25 years. So I don't know how she started it. It was mad. Like I think you've got the true like resilience there in her. So yeah, I could just use the labs at uni, and I'd remember she put in bottles originally, and she put the first order in, and I was still like, "What are you doing?" And she paid the supplier twice, and I was like, "Oh my god, no, we can't do this." That's when I moved home and was like, "Maxine, we need to sort this."
Get organised, yeah. That's what you brought, bit of clarity.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, bottles aren't the right format. Like, let's change out of bottles. Let's not overplay the supplier. Let's refine the formulation to make it taste good and things like that. So we're kind of just we're very complementary in our skill set, to be fair.
What was the kind of timeline for that, Darcy, then?
So she started looking. We officially launched in December 17, and that's when we went into sachets. But it was about a 18-month process before that, really, that kind of led up to it. And that's, probably 6 months of that was just doing bone broth, but not even as a business. And it's funny, like, if you'd say, what is your business plan aspirations at the beginning? Like, there was never one. Like, we just had this product that people were like, what are you doing? I want what you're taking. And at the time, it was the bone broth concentrate that Maxine was making. And they were like, your hair looks good. You look like you've got more confidence. And it's funny, we sell a product, but we really sell transformations and kind of like a feeling and like an enabler to a lot of women. But yeah, then we were just like, how can we make this formulation better? And how can we get it to as many people? But originally it was create this collagen product. People wanted it. We actually tried to find it online to just send them the link, and it wasn't there.
I was going to say to you, like, what was the competition like around then?
Oh, non-existent.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
like, so we were one of the first kind of. There was 2 other brands that sold collagen, but it was as part of a bigger formulation. So like, it was never really the hero. So whilst collagen's literally everywhere now, we were instrumental in leading that and creating that market. To be fair.
And kind of to rewind when you were 20, what would you say was, or even like early 20s, what was one of the advantages of co-founding a business then, would you say?
Oh my God, the naivety. But I think that's the same with, so if you look at my mum, she was 49, had no business experience. Like, she was lucky to be able to look after me and my sister growing up. So I think we both came with the same lens of like, meh, this is going to be okay. We'll just start a business. And I remember we started, like I said, May 17 is when we launched, and no one was buying anything. And I was like, why is no one buying anything off this website? Well, we weren't pushing any traffic there for a start. Like, honestly, if you looked back, I was like, we did not have the pieces together, but we found the right people. And to be fair, that's what Maxine's really good at, is finding the right people. So we went to a digital marketing company and we sat down, and she was like, okay, this is £8,000 a month. I don't know, $3,000 in agency fees, $5,000 in ad spend. Should we do it? And I was like, that's a lot. Like, £8,000 a month. We're not making any profit. We're selling to your friends. Like, that's a big jump. And she was like, we'll just sell the house. We'll just move into a smaller house. Bear in mind, she'd already remortgaged the house and put £125,000 of her own money into Absolute Collagen. Like, the risk appetite that woman has is insane.
So you were kind of balancing that out then, the voice of reason.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, AC wouldn't exist if Maxine hadn't had the kind of
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. I think somebody in the business has to have that risk appetite, or otherwise it stays as an idea, doesn't it? Or it stays as a selling to your friends or at a market stall, or it's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, she was like, should we just do it? I'm like, okay, yeah. She was like, we'll just move into a different house. We'll rent somewhere. And it was so like, she's so blasé about a lot. And I think that's part of her ADHD. She's constantly like selling her house, not selling her house, moving somewhere else, not moving somewhere else. And you can kind of get quite exhausted by the whole thing. And I don't get, I'm pretty mellow. Like if she tells me something now, I'm not like, oh my God, that's great. Cause I'm like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen?
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
do something else or not? I don't know. And we laugh about it. But yeah, she's fun.
It's funny, like when you mentioned before that she had written a letter, to the company in China. I thought that actually reminded me of Richard Branson, like back in the day, because I always remember him not being able to use a computer. He didn't send an email, didn't know how to use an email account. Pretty sure he's changed over the last 10 years or 15 years since I left Virgin Atlantic, but that was certainly the case like back at kind of dawn of social media and all that. Didn't have a clue, wasn't interested in learning how to either. Just used to come on the plane with a notepad and pen and just write stuff down in his pads, and that was it. Yeah. I always tell the story. I've mentioned it a few times on the show, but he would, instead of, well, I didn't get it at the time. I'm like, why isn't he sitting in upper class? Why has he gone down into economy? And he sat in economy, and then he spent the majority of the flight, 7 hours to New York, just walking around the plane, asking people questions and writing them down in his book. And you look back on it now, knowing what I know, and going, well, that's genius, isn't it? There's no better way to get, customer focus and find out what people like, what they don't like, the customer journey than doing that. And especially, back in maybe like the 90s or noughties, where there wasn't that amount of information online that you could get that kind of stuff. People kind of hoarded that on their own airline. But looking back on that, I was like, that's brilliant. More people should have done that. But
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Like at the beginning, I used to send so many emails just with surveys attached to them, like so we could speak to customers, ring customers up. And in the past probably year or so, we've really moved to like paying for external qual and quant. And you can pay big 30, 50, 100 grand for pieces of research and whatever, more than that. But on this recent product that we've been working on, we've stripped it right back and run it all ourselves. And I've done the qual with customers like 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, 1-to-3. And genuinely, I feel like that has been so much more insightful because you actually get the kind of raw stuff back. Also, I know research agencies are great at doing the kind of research, but it can be swayed by whoever in the company is running it with them and things like that. But yeah, just actually picking the phone up and speaking to them has been like super valuable. And we do it a lot actually. We invite customers here to our office and they love to come in.
I bet.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, especially we have an internal team called the Collagen Connoisseurs who like are 20 people from the team who are like taste trained and we test formulations on them. But then we get our customers in and they'll do the same, which is interesting. And we have to ban Maxine from those meetings because they'll just say everything's great otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Force of character as well. That's brilliant. That's really insightful as well. And what would you say some of the disadvantages you've experienced at co-founding a business in your early 20s?
Yeah, I used to think, well, there's been a couple of situations that I've been put in that have made me at the time quite uncomfortable. Like comments. I remember I was on the phone to someone and they were like, do you have the do you have the decision to spend this money and things like that? Or I was in a lift and this was only like 2 years ago. I went to grab, someone had a meeting, but they were overrun. So I went to grab the people that were coming in and I was in the lift and they're like, oh, are you so-and-so's PA? And I was just like, one, why assume that? Because one, I'm a woman, and two, because I'm quite young. And then another person in the meeting was like, oh, are you the marketing assistant? And I'm like, I don't really give a shit, but like, why assume? And that's, I think, the hardest part. And I used to kind of get quite caught up and pent up about it and get like that imposter thing. And what I've realized is it's all that really matters is my opinion of what I do. And as a person, I don't really care for external validation. Like, even if someone's like, oh my God, that is an amazing piece of work, or you've done so well, I don't really believe them unless I think I've done a good job. So it's kind of just shifting that narrative a little bit. Because I have found it hard. Like taking investment was a difficult one. It's quite random. We've got investment from Living Bridge. They're great. But the first meetings were with me and my mum in our house. Like that's strange for them. They've never really experienced that before. And I was speaking to our actual investors. I was like, "What did you think about us in our first meeting?" And he was like, "Oh my god, I walked away and thought, absolutely not. Like you guys, no." Yeah, and he said it so candidly, and I was like, "Well, why did you invest?" And he was like, "Oh, the other person I was with was like, if we could build a brand like them, we'd be building brands like them." And then we're quite open, me and Maxine, to I always just want the business and the people in the business and the customers to be taken care of. Whatever happens to me, I don't really care about. If it's Darcy, you're stopping progress. Darcy, you're not growing as fast as the company. And I thought we'd take investment, which we did in 2020. And I thought that would be kind of the end of the road for me. But I've actually grown quite well with the business, but I'm always like, if you need me to step back or change or leave, whatever it is, I'll do it. I just want the business to, yeah, like it's, but that's also been the worst thing for me as well, in the fact that when we did take investment and they brought all these amazing people like they do and into the business and you have some really great conversations, I was just like, well, these people must know everything. Like they were bringing in MDs of really big companies like Nivea or whoever it might be, like really cool people. And I was just like said yes to everything because I thought they must know. But what I've realized is I know the customer better than anyone else. And so you can take bits from people, but I have to like try and stand my ground, which I'm not confrontational at all. So yeah, I've learned to kind of believe in myself a bit more and just take kind of temperature of different things and push back where necessary, but also take on other people's ideas. And that's probably the most the negative sides of it. But I think it's just kind of ingrained in my personality as well.
Yeah, maybe.
If you're enjoying this conversation and thinking, I need to be around more people like this, then I've got the perfect solution for you. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is where 5,000 to 10,000 ambitious entrepreneurs come together to learn from the people who've actually done it. It's on October the 8th and 9th at the NEC in Birmingham, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes. Real entrepreneurs, real stories, real strategies. Exactly like what you're hearing right now, but live and in person. Go to festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk and get your free 2-day pass before they're gone.
Like when you took the investment, which I was going to ask you about at some point as well, you thought you were done then? You were ready to step out?
Yeah, there's kind of three of us that sort of started AC, and it was me and my mum. And there's a guy called Brad as well, and he always looked after the tech and website stuff. And I thought Brad would absolutely thrive in this kind of investor-led environment and blah, blah, blah. And I would be the one that'd be like, oh, don't know how to cope there. But it was actually the way around. And he ended up leaving about 6 months after the investment. He didn't like the kind of rigidity and the reporting side, which I kind of love.
Kind of fits into your organizational mindset. And
yeah, like, okay, run with it for a month, then report back on everything. And it's kind of like you run in the little sprints, don't you? So I've really enjoyed it. And like the rooms I get to sit in and the people I get to meet, I'm like, I'd have never got this far 100% if I was in like a traditional career path. And like I know so much more about even just how business works and like operates and things like that. And my network that I've got is insane. And I know that I love AC, but in the future, if I wanted to do something else, like nutrition is what I love, sports nutrition, I know I'd have the tools and the resources and like the kind of mindset to do so. But yeah, I'm just thankful for that. Really, I get to meet some, well, like even like you, like some insane people.
yeah, and do you know what? That's the biggest thing I always say that I've gotten from this is that you have these people on pedestals, and I know, like relatively early on, I was the first interview I had was like Stephen Bartlett, and then it was like Lewis Howes from School of Greatness podcast, then it's Richard Reed from Innocent, and you come in with all these ideas of what your perception of this person and what they've built is, and then you suddenly realize everybody's actually the same. Everybody was winging it to start with. No one started as an expert with what they're doing, and what got them there was that strength of character. It was that surrounding themselves with the right people, kind of realize, as you said, you and your mum have got opposing complementary skill sets, and it's realizing those people who've put those different pieces of the puzzle together to get where they are. But they all say the same thing. They all say that they're winging it, whether it's, like the founder of £1 billion business that I've interviewed, or £100 million business, or a £50 million business, or, single digit figures, whatever it is, and people who've had, numerous failures along the way to getting to the successful thing. And then you'll speak to other ones who've had that big success, and then they go to try, had the exit, and then they go to replicate it again, and not being able to quite come up with that magic formula that what it was. So, I find it fascinating and interesting that you said that as well. What about, around that investment? Were there conversations around, but continue to bootstrap by keeping 100% of the business, or do we, take on some investment and try and grow the business quicker? Was there ever that conversation of, we keep it as this size of business, more kind of lifestyle-y, rather than actually let's shoot for the moon and see where we end up?
For us, investment was more of a decision about capabilities than the money. Like, AC has been profitable since day one. Luckily, we're direct-to-consumer subscription model. So we've been really lucky there. We marketed mainly on like Meta, and in the early days it was it was great. Less so now, but then it was really, really great. So investment was like, okay, me and my mum were sat there one day and we looked out, and at the time we had about 15 employees, I think. We were turning over £14 million, and I think it was kind of, okay, do we want to take the business forward? If we do, it now becomes less about the risk on me and Maxine and my mum. Like, if something goes wrong, there's 14 people probably supporting families and things like that. We've never done this before. How can we bring people in that are going to strategically help us? And looking back, like, we could have done that just employing like a good C-suite, but who's going to believe like the slightly nuts 50-year-old woman and her 20-year-old daughter? Because it is a weird proposition. Like, you do have to take a look. So that's when we started looking at investment, and genuinely didn't have an idea about investment, didn't know what due diligence meant, didn't know what data room was. They're both giving me like heebie-jeebies and the creeps now. But that was like, so we started that in February 2020 and then completed on 17th of December 2020. We really just went down the PE route. And actually, interestingly, we didn't take advice to start with. We just went straight to one of the PE houses who'd reached out to us. And they valued the company at about a sixth of what it was actually valued at. So they tried to like lowball us. And they did end up putting a bid in for the correct valuation, but I'm glad. Yeah, we took advice off a Lancia in the end, and they were really great. But they kind of held a hand, I think, through it. But yeah, so we ended up with, I think, 3 offers on the table from really good outlets, to be fair. And we kind of went for the one that, because we're a bit of a weird duo to work with, that we thought we'd get on the best with, really. And that would support us and had the right kind of contacts. But we never took any money out of the business, which when we did DD, they were all really surprised at. Like, I was getting paid like £12,500 a year, Maxine the same. Like, I don't know, we never really treated it as sort of our money. It was always the company's. And looking back now, being PE invested, you can't really take much money out of the business anymore. So probably should have done the early days. But yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, it is. And I was chatting to, again, I don't know if you know her because she's not a million miles away from you guys, Juliet Barrett from Grenade. Yeah. And I was chatting to her recently for this. And I've interviewed her before, and she's come to one of my events before as well. But she was saying that they always, if she could have done something differently, it was like going back, because they did take a lot of, I think the first investment they did, she was saying they did take cash out of the business, and that enabled them to buy the houses that they got now. And like Al's gone and bought, his helicopters and his boats and and all the rest of it. But she was like, if I could redo one thing, it would be it would go back in time and redo that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting that you say that. But yeah, everyone has different experience, don't they, when it comes to that route, and especially like maybe the naivety helped you, but then equally, given that low ball offer, it made sense to actually speak to a few different people. And I remember like chatting to Richard Reed years ago, and he was like saying literally from, the first couple of years with Innocent, they were constantly getting offers for the business. And in the end, it was just a case of, we can't say we can't say no anymore. We've got an offer on the table for £500 million from Coca-Cola. They can take this where we can't take it. So we'll bow out gracefully and then start another business literally 24 hours later. So would you say your passion, you mentioned before, sports nutrition, what would you think that you would want to do with that? Would that be now? Do you think you could work for anyone else again, or do you think you'd have to be the founder of a business and you would be in charge of that?
I have never had another job apart from bar work or waitressing and things like that. So I've never actually done like an office job or like a 9 to 5, I guess, a traditional one. I know I'd be like 100% motivated in whatever I do if I find it interesting. But I also know that I'm quite opinionated and like what I like and quite direct in that respect. I find nutrition, health, longevity super interesting. I think the UK's kind of health crisis that we're in. We've had like 100 years of being advertised about how to be healthy and this and that, but we're just going backwards in so many ways. And I think there's a supplement approach, and I think that's really cool. But I think there's just a wider piece on kind of what I'm sort of passionate about is just like food in general and education on that piece. I think is really interesting. Like school kids and the food that they're eating and things like that. I think we have such a bigger job to do there. But yeah, the personalized health space. I take about 12 pills a day. Supplement. Yeah, I take a lot of tablets. But equally, I eat a good diet. I eat whole foods. Like I'm quite obsessed with all of that. So yeah, I definitely go into that sort of area. Like I know ecom like the back of my hand. Like I love that digital space, and I think it's just so exciting about where it's going to go. But also in like the high streets, like we launched in Boots in April 25, and that's gone really, really well. Like we've got some really good figures from them, and they're really happy with our performance there. And it's interesting how, ecom shifted the kind of market during COVID, but now it's kind of going back a little bit. And one of the things I learned actually this week, so we can correlate the temperature outside to our new customers. So if the temperature goes up to like 27, 28, people aren't on their phones, so we see less customers. And we've like overlaid that. But with Boots, because they're then outside on the high street, they're popping into the store. So our sales are going up on Boots. I find that fascinating and the psychology behind it.
Yeah, I always remember a friend of mine who's in the restaurant business, and he used to always just say, when it's sunny, we make money. I can't remember the next bit because it rhymed as well, and I failed on that bit. But I just always remember him telling you could just literally tell by the weather how much money they were going to make. And it was like the difference between making a couple of £100 to making like tens of thousands of pounds. And I was like, really? That's insane. Tell me, Chief People Officer, you've seen your brand grow to a team of, I think you said around 70 people now. Tell me about like the timeline of so you started in 2017, we're now 2025. How quickly have you built that team, and are you directly involved in that? Is that like one of your main responsibilities? And what are your thoughts on scaling the business, scaling the number of people in the business?
Yeah, so when we first started, like I said, it was me and mum and a guy called Brad. So employee number 4 was we employed a community manager, actually, which people would think that's probably quite bonkers full time. But we call her like the social butterfly. She would just reply to customers, and that was always the number one priority. Like we've always just centered everything around the customer. Like what does she want? How can we better her experience, etc. And then built out our kind of marketing team from there. So 2017, there was kind of like the 4 of us. Fast forward to 2020, we're about 15 at the beginning and about 24 at the end. So we kind of grew pretty rapidly after that. I remember when we took investment, for instance, our allowable cost of acquisition, because we didn't really understand lifetime value versus cost of acquisition, all of that. Like we were winging it to some extent. We had a really good marketing company that was ace, that helped us. But in terms of the financials that sat behind there, we weren't that great at analyzing. Like I'm not really like a finance guru, nor is Maxine, as you can probably imagine from double paying the invoice at the beginning. But yeah, so we had some cool people come on board after that. But yeah, we allowed our CPA to kind of double, and that allowed us access to a lot more customers. And sort of 2020, Well, 2021, we went from kind of 25 employees to probably about 45, 50 at the end, and that was quite, yeah. There's a lot of recruitment, and it's kind of sad for me seeing people leave, but people generally here leave on good terms. Like I stay in touch with a lot of them, but I've always been directly involved in recruitment, probably until about 6 months ago. Like I'd pretty much interview everyone that started here. We've got some really great, well, HR teams based on there's two people in it. Sasha and Laura, they're ace. Like I know I can trust them with who that we're recruiting, and we set kind of really strong parameters on our company sort of principles, which it stands for ACERS, which doesn't really make much sense, but everyone remembers it, and it's about authenticity, being kind of caring, entrepreneurial, and responsible. So kind of we're B Corp and on that basis. So everyone is kind of recruited on those bases. Like we have a employee nomination kind of board, and everyone's nominated on those four principles. So for me, I'm not great at I don't know the HR law side of things. It's not my forte. But we have good people that know that. I know I'm good on the cultural side of it, and kind of that piece, and that's what Maxine's also really good. But yeah, my role here is predominantly people in product, so the double P's. But yeah, my passions really lie in product development and science, and I just love people. So that's kind of always been sort of my area. But yeah, it's been interesting seeing like how we recruit people, and that's developed over time. I remember interviewing our first customer service person, and her name's Charlotte. She still works here. She was a hairdresser from the age of 16, and she probably started here when she was maybe, I don't know, she won't mind me saying this, I can't remember, like 40 or something, and she'd never had another job outside a hair salon. She didn't work on the reception desk. She was actually the hairdresser. She'd never really worked on a laptop, but I was like, oh, you're kind. You're really nice. Let's employ you. And we employed a lot of nice people at the beginning that were really nice and friendly, but probably didn't necessarily grow with the company because they might not have had that skill set and the resilience there. And we've kind of had to reframe that narrative to, okay, we probably do need people that it's hard work here. It's hard work growing like an e-com, D2C, well, any brand, to be honest, any business, to be
Any
honest.
business, exactly. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So it is like, interviews now, and I'm kind of brutally honest, like this is hard graft. Like it's not, you're not swanning in here, swanning out of here. And especially if you're in, performance marketing, if something goes wrong on the evenings, you're going to have a look at it and sort it out. Otherwise we're going to overspend, underspend, and not hit our budget numbers. And we've been we've got a really good team, and they really care about what they're doing, and we're all on the same mission. But we've definitely had to change up the kind of people that we recruit a little bit, to that entrepreneurial side.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned in the kind of 600 odd interviews I've done with this and all the live events with different entrepreneurs and running businesses myself is that the people that you hire at the start aren't necessarily the people to get you to where you want to be ultimately, and it's always. I'm again not non-confrontational. I always remember having to tell somebody in a previous business I had like sports therapy business, which are like scaled to a number of different locations. I always remember having to tell this like massive, big, macho Aussie guy that we were letting him go because no one was rebooking. He was the loveliest person, but none of the clients were rebooking. And he just burst into tears, and I just didn't know what to do with that. It was like the last reaction I ever thought I was going to get from telling him that. I was expecting him to I was moving my chair further back thinking the first thing he's going to go for me, he's going to take my head off or something. But he just burst into tears, and I just felt horrendous, obviously, then. It's like the worst feeling in the world. But it sounds harsh, doesn't it? But it has to be a business decision based on where you see taking the business.
Yeah, we've gone through things in the past, and we've had to maybe let people go and things, and I've hated having those conversations, but I've always tried to be involved in them because I think it's fair. But generally when you speak to them, they're also unhappy or something. And they've, even if they don't agree with the decision, they've gone into better roles, more fulfilling roles, completely changed up their career, realize this isn't for them. And I find that bit quite hard because I'm a people person. I'm not a people pleaser, but I'm a people person, and I care about people. So that's been quite tricky for me, but always learning and like doing those experiences and going through them. Every person has probably ended up better on the other side. And the business, I think that's quite hard. Like I've got a couple of friends that work here, And the conversations are always tricky, because not everyone's perfect. Like sometimes things go wrong, etc. But yeah, they're still here, still kicking about, still doing a great job. So I'm like, it's not my decision anymore, uh, which is yeah, it's hard, but it's nice working with people you trust at the end of the day. And I think that's like my sister works here, she's on maternity leave at the moment. Obviously my mum, but it's moved out now. And we used to have the finance function quite was family run, but it's not anymore. But yeah, it's just trusting other people, and it's hard, that trust piece.
It is. So coming up to, we've got a quick fire round to finish up. Before I do, a couple of last questions, Darcy. Bring it back to your mum, funnily enough. What's the hardest part about working with your mum, and what's the best part?
The hardest part is probably we're not very good at identifying when, like, I just want her to be a mum versus like a co-founder or business partner or whatever. So I'll sometimes, rant or moan, and she'll do the same at me, and she goes into like fix mode, and I'm like, or like she's like trying to fix things. I'm like, no, I'm just offloading stuff. And there was one time I told her something, or I didn't tell her something actually, and she was like, why didn't you speak to me about that? I was like, I can't talk to you about that. You're my mum. And like, that's kind of tricky. And I don't know what sort of relationship we'd have if we didn't work together. I get to spend a lot of time with her. I get to spend a lot of time with my sister, and that's lovely. And I don't think we'd spend as much time with each other, but I can't say if our relationship would be better or worse. Like, we've got a great relationship, but it's definitely different from those mums and daughters that I see that don't work together. Like we're going down in the car in a minute for a couple of hours, and I know she wants to talk about tax, so that's fun.
That's definitely different. Yeah, never had that conversation with my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever disagreed on a big business decision?
Weirdly, not really. Actually, there was one. Maxine is quite erratic in her decision making and doesn't necessarily look at the big picture. But I don't necessarily think this is the wrong thing. She basically like fired our whole marketing agency with like 3 days notice once, and then I had to kind of figure it out in the background, like what we're going to do. I don't really cry, but I cried a lot. Looking back, it was probably the right decision, but it's like the way in which it goes about it. She goes about stuff is she's got ADHD, I think, can be quite like disruptive. She wouldn't mind me saying that. This was in lockdown, and we lived together, and we locked ourselves in separate rooms for about 3 weeks, to be honest, because I was very annoyed. But in terms of, she's really respectful of my decision, I'm really respectful of her decisions, and we're very direct with each other, but we don't actually disagree massively on stuff. And even if we do, we always end up at the same place, just discussing things. Or I think because of your family, there's none of that like judgment. You don't need to prove yourself and blah, blah, blah. You can just like be yourself and agree, disagree, change your mind. And I think that's really quite powerful, that you haven't got that kind of wall up that you always need to prove yourself to stay in that position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that must be tough living under the same roof as well. Have you like moved out now, or do you still?
Oh God, yeah.
Right.
So I lived at home because we basically did all the packing from the garage. So we were sending out like 1,000 orders a day from our garage, which was weird. And then we had about 6 desks in our lounge. And then and I was like, well, I'm not moving out. There's no point. My office is downstairs. And then I got to the age of like 23 and thought, this is not for me. So I moved out.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. What do you think you'd be doing now if you hadn't joined forces with your mum at AC?
I think I would be doing food product development, to be honest. I think I'd be working in like a development kitchen or something, probably in nutrition. Like, I've always liked that space. Yeah, I think I'd probably be doing something to do with that. All the grad schemes I was applying for were like buying roles and things like that. But yeah, I think I've realised that I have to be really motivated to want to do something. And I think that motivation is probably like the key part. Like, I think that's like 50% of the success in a lot of things. It's like I said, that naivety, but doing things that other people have said that's not going to work. And you're like, yeah, it will. And that was a lot with our formulation, like one of our suppliers. And my mum speaks about it quite well. They were like, this is a silly formula, it will never work. And they came and apologized to us after and was like, oh yeah, I get it. Like, we do certain things to it and blah, blah, blah. But that's the naivety. And even go to suppliers now and like, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, you can if you do this or this or this. They're like, oh, okay, fine. But it's that like motivation to go the extra mile, isn't it? And want to make a change. Someone's got to be first.
Indeed. Finish up just before quick fire questions. As a younger founder of a business, what would be a biggest piece of advice you could give to other young people listening who are considering starting a business?
Believe in yourself more. I know if I had that advice, like, I think I genuinely do think the company might be in a slightly different position right now. I think in terms of product and things like that, I think we've moved a little bit too slow. And I know that I should have just believed in and stood up for what I believe in a little bit more. Because it can be hard when you've got loads of experience. I've got 8 years of experience, nearly 9-10 years of experience. But when you're sitting in a room with the combined experience level of like 100 years, it's quite hard to be like, oh, I think this is better because of X, Y, Z. But yeah, I think a lot of people I speak to kind of similar age to me starting businesses, they've got sort of no money and they're quite, beholden to investors and things like that, which is hard because they have such an opinion on things, but they haven't built brands. I think that can be quite tricky because they want to go, and especially if they're, giving you 15 grand for 20% equity to basically start your business and buy that stock, they're going to have such an opinion on everything. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, no, good advice. Okay, finish up, quick fire rounds, 5 or 6 questions. First thing that comes into your heads, short and snappy, whatever you think. First one, Darcy, what is an entrepreneur?
Someone that thinks outside the box and does things that other people haven't necessarily thought of doing or doing something different.
Perfect. What do you think this country needs to do to get more startups?
Sort out the way in which companies are like funded and founders get paid, probably. I think that's quite a tricky one. Like, we're now beholden to private equity because we sold some shares.
Yeah.
I'm not negative about it in any way, but
no.
We couldn't just take it back, and we could if we debt financed it, but that would be a big risk on your family. And I think that whole thing and the tax on it and stuff is difficult.
Yeah, no, agree. What in your mind is a scale-up business, so different to a startup?
Oh, I think we're probably going through that phase at the moment, and there's a lot more, I guess, proper functions and people doing less scrappy things and better decision-making processes and things like that. But we've gone from zero to nothing to where we are now in sort of 7 years, and you kind of just go through iterations. And one of the things we've never got right is organization communication, like how to communicate down. And I thought, you get to a point where that would be crystal clear and everyone would know what they're doing, but that never happens. I've learned.
Any thoughts on why the USA is better at producing scale-ups and unicorn businesses than the UK?
People in the US, when you speak to them, are just so much more optimistic and want to help each other so much more. I'm from the Midlands. I grew up in Wolverhampton. We work in Birmingham, and people don't want to see people succeed. People don't want to share contacts, and I genuinely think that's a big part of it. And if you go to London, you have such a wider pool of ethnicities and where people come from, and you have almost a different feel down there, and people kind of want each other to succeed, but that needs to kind of disseminate into the rest of the UK, and in my opinion.
It's so true. I was chatting to a friend of mine, Nell Daly, who's speaking at the event. She's just launched a £70 million fund for not just female founders, but for those who've come from a background where it might be difficult for them to try and get funding. And we were having this conversation. She's American and she's flying over from New York for it. And she was saying, I literally get a text message going, you need to speak to John in Miami. And she's like, oh, well, then just phone John in Miami and have a conversation. She goes, in the UK, you guys go, well, who's John from Miami? Let me look online and go, ooh, well, what difference is he going to make in my life? Why should I meet John? What does he want from me? And you're like, that's so true, isn't it? It's such a different mindset.
And also the crowdfunding startup stuff. We are so, people put their money in ISAs, don't they, or things like that. But just if you got 10 grand, go put it in a company, take a bit more of a risk. We don't do that. And I think that would help a lot of startups. But I just think we're so risk averse. No one wants to do anything. You can't fail. Yeah, we've got a weird, quite grumpy attitude sometimes.
Yeah, and the mindset's definitely different. What can entrepreneurs look forward to when hearing you speak at the Festival of Entrepreneurs?
Oh, well, me and my mum will be speaking about running a family business, which is always interesting because we kind of always discuss it a little bit before, but you can't. Maxine says what Maxine wants to say, and she will, I guarantee you, say, probably shouldn't say this, but probably look forward to seeing my squirmish face, like, what the hell is she going to tell the world, to be honest, which is more of a question mark in my head. And yeah, I normally have to brief her on what not to say, what rather than what to say.
I look forward to this. Is there a founder at the moment or historically that you admire the most?
Ooh, do you know what? Her name's completely gone from my head, but the lady that founded Spanx, I think she's really cool.
Yeah, Itzler, Jesse, because I follow her husband, Jesse Itzler. I was just looking at their bloody Instagram earlier today because I follow her husband, Jesse.
Sarah Blakely. I think she's super cool. I remember when she sold Spanx, when she gave everyone like a business class ticket to so-and-so.
Oh, right, really? Amazing.
Yeah, I just think the way in which she's done things is super cool, and it's innovative, and it's changed people's lives, I guess.
It's funny when I follow them on Instagram and you literally see like their lives, and they've got young kids, and he's just bought like a sauna boat. So it's a sauna that's a boat, and they're just like going out into the lake saunering. And he's like, they're both like totally bonkers, and just inviting, like doing random events at their house they're in Atlanta in Georgia, and like the amount of people, and she's like, and he's like, right, Sarah has now said to me, I'm not allowed to keep inviting random people I've met on the internet to our house to sleep over and, do marathons and shit like this. It's just hilarious, but they're both super successful exits, billion-dollar companies, each of them, like separately, not working in the same business. But no, she's got an amazing. I would love to interview Sarah Blakely. Yeah, you ever get a connection to Sarah Blakely? I'm in.
Go for it. Yeah, no, there's some really cool companies at the moment. Like, it's like David Barr, the guy that started RX. You seen that?
No. Okay.
The guy that started RX Bar.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No RX Bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peter Rahal, I think. So he started a company called David, which is it's like this like perfect protein bar. But the second product launch was a piece of fish because it was like the perfect source of protein. It's wild. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyone that last question would be, Darcy, anyone that you would recommend, having been on Screw It, Just Do It, anyone that you would recommend for the show? Don't have to give me your answer now. You can think about it and I can come back to you, but anyone you think would be super cool.
I've got loads of young female founders.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being on the show, and look forward to meeting you in person at the Festival of Entrepreneurs.
Cool. Thanks, Alex.
That conversation just proves something. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So here's my challenge. Upgrade your network. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is happening October the 8th and 9th, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes to get in the room with 5,000 to 10,000 entrepreneurs who are actually building something. This is where the risk takers, the game changers, and the people who've decided to screw it and just do it come for inspiration, education, and connection. Don't just listen to their success stories, go meet the people living them. Grab your free pass now, because the biggest risk isn't taking a chance, it's missing the opportunity entirely. If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.